If single-family real estate is becoming too expensive and there's not enough multifamily real estate supply, which strategy is actually better? Okay, welcome back. My name is Cody. I'm a realtor here in Winnipeg and your go-to source for all things Winnipeg real estate. And today we're covering one of the most common questions I get from out-of-state or out-of-province investors, and that is, should I buy a single-family house or a multifamily house? So let's go over the details about which one I think is a better investment in the current market and why some of the investors sort of lean towards one of them over the other. Okay, so let's start with the basics. When we talk about a single family home, what are we talking about? Well, that's typically a standard single family dwelling that's a detached home or an attached house that can only house one family. That's why it's called single family homes. These are your typical houses in suburbs or neighborhoods. Recently, we have been building a lot more row housing, but each of those is divided into single family homes. So they're still all under the branch of single family homes. Multifamily homes is sort of divided into two different facets. And one of them is residential multifamily. The other one is commercial multifamily. Now they operate pretty similar, but the main difference is that for residential, which is 2, 3, or 4 units, that's under residential finance. And 5 units or more becomes commercial financing. Even though it's very similar, they start to use different terms. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna compare all 3 of these investment vehicles to see which one is the best in Winnipeg using real numbers. So let's get into an example. So for single family homes, in Winnipeg right now, the average single family home sort of floats around that $400,000 price range. So we're gonna take that for our average price. Now, obviously I understand we're using averages and different homes have different prices and different rents that they can get depending on the quality of the finishes and the area. We're just gonna be generalizing for this entire video, but we will sort of get into the details of why that matters later on in the video. So a typical single family home in that $400,000 price range will rent anywhere from $1,800 to about $2,500 a month plus utilities. Obviously, like I said, it depends on the area and the condition of the house. Now, fourplexes are quite uncommon in the city, but duplexes and triplexes usually cost between $450,000 and $700,000 depending on the area and the condition. These will rent anywhere from $3,500 to about $4,500, maybe even more per building. If you get up into that high sixes or 700,000, you can maybe get up to about 5,000 per month in rent. The larger multifamily homes, their rent will be more conducive to what we call median or standard rent. So when you have a bigger multifamily building, if it's a 1 bed, 1 bath, that's gonna rent for almost about the average. So in Winnipeg, that will be anywhere between $1,000 and $1,300 depending on the area. And the price for these larger multifamily buildings, depending on the number of units, will be anywhere from $800,000 to $2.5 million, with obviously lots going over that price. The typical price range that most investors are working at. And once you get into this size of multifamily, we actually use something called cap rates, which determines the sell price depending on the income. It becomes less of a comparable market and more of an income market, which is one of the biggest differences between residential and commercial. Okay, so now let's get into a cash flow comparison, and using a estimated average appreciation rate, we're also going to factor that in to see how that changes the investment and how we look at the underwriting. Now, I will say before we get into the numbers, appreciation is not always guaranteed, and it obviously depends on the local house, but I think often people sort of disregard it, and then down the road when it comes up, they're sort of happy for it, and that can work out. I don't think you should be buying something that cash flows negative just for a high appreciation, but I also think that you should be aware of more or less where your house is going to be worth in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, because that's how investments sort of work. Okay, so for the single family house, we have a $400,000 house. We have an average rent of about $2,200 plus utilities. The mortgage payment on that house is going to be $1,585, give or take a little bit depending on the interest rate or the amortization. We're using a 4.3 and a 30-year amortization. Your insurance is going to be around $100 a month. Your property tax is somewhere around $333. We're going to have a 4% vacancy rate, which means every 2 years somebody's moving out. 2% for maintenance, 2% for capital expenditures, and the utilities are pushing off to the tenant. Property management fees for this place will be about 8% of the rent, which comes out to about $176, which means this place will have a cash flow of negative $150 a month. But so here's the kicker with the single family homes. As we know, they appreciate better than multifamily because there's more demand for them. And again, we're going to talk about that later. But we're going to use a 4% appreciation rate, which is less than the Winnipeg average of 6%. And even with the negative cash flow, your cash investment will have a 22% return on investment, which means in about 5 years, even cash flowing negative $150 a month, you are going to get your money back. Now, I'd say normally you want that to be a bit higher, and $150 a month is probably not worth it unless you have a lot of reserves or it's a really good house. I do think you can find homes that will cash flow something or even break even and still get you that high appreciation rate. Okay, so in the duplex, we have a $600,000 purchase price, which gives you $3,800 of rent. Your mortgage payment is going to be around $2,400. Your insurance is going to be $167 a month. Your property taxes are going to be $417 a month. Your property management fees, again, are 8%, which is about $304. And then we're going to actually have less vacancy, and we're going to bring that down to 2%, but it's going to be more maintenance. And so it actually works out to be that same 8% of the rent. The utilities will be separate. You'll pass it on to the tenants. And this cash flow is $233 a month. Okay, with a lower appreciation rate of 2%, that's 17% return on cash on cash return on investment. Getting into the multifamily, if we take a $1 million building and say it has 6 units, the average rent is about $1,050 per unit. That's $6,300 on rent. Your mortgage is going to be $3,959. Your insurance is going to be $333. Your property taxes are going to be $542 a month. Your property management fees are going to be at 8%, $504. Your maintenance is going to be a bit higher at 5%, which brings the total up to 9% for vacancy, capex, and maintenance. And the utilities, you will have a common area that you will probably need to heat and or cool, which is going to be about $200 a month on average. This will cash flow about $287. And so with the appreciation of 2%, that gives you a 16.6% return on investment of your cash. And that is a 6% cap rate building, which is actually pretty good. Now, the issue is obviously when you look at the multifamily buildings and the bigger units, they cost a lot more. And so you're actually not getting that much more cash flow for how much they cost. So there's a lot to unpack here, but there's sort of 5 main takeaways that I want to take from this. And that is single family homes are generally speaking a lot harder to cash flow, especially in today's market. And so the reason being is that you're competing with home buyers. And so those home buyers will sometimes buy houses that are more expensive that don't make sense, and the numbers won't work out as an investment, which is why a lot of people think they want to do multifamily. And from this scenario, it seems like the smaller multifamily is sort of the best of both worlds. But we need to talk about barrier to entry and economies of scale. And so a lot of people start with single family homes because it's more affordable. You can spend 20% down on a single family home, and that's a lot less money than putting 20% down on a duplex that costs $600,000. But when you talk about economies of scale, if you were going to buy 6 rental units, would you rather buy 6 single family homes or 1 apartment building? Well, probably 1 apartment building. That's going to be a lot less work. It's going to be a lot more passive. And so there is gives and takes to both. Single family homes often go into a price point where it doesn't actually make sense at all. And this actually causes most investors to switch to multifamily. And one big benefit is that multifamily actually has more financing options. So for single family homes, if you're owner occupied, you could put 5% down. But if you're doing it as a straight investment, it's 20% automatically. Normally, commercial properties work that same way too, but enter in the CMHC MLI Select program. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but it allows you to put 5% down on an affordable building with a 50-year amortization, which actually lets you cash flow and spread out the payments so that your building can actually cash flow, and it allows you to get into that building, removing that barrier to entry while keeping that economies of scale. This makes it a lot more attractive. Now, the issue here is that even with more financing options in the commercial space of multifamily, you have a smaller inventory. So it's going to take a lot longer to actually get a building under your belt. And so that's, again, there's give and takes to both single family and multifamily. And so essentially, the way that I look at it is that there is no right answer for whether you should do a single family investment or a multifamily investment. Single family can be less maintenance, easier financing in terms of getting approved for a mortgage. You're going to get a better appreciation rate, but sometimes you have more stuff go wrong. It's more sort of high risk, high reward in the sense where if somebody has moved out, you are now making no money on that property. But multifamily can take a lot longer to actually get a property. There's not near as much supply. Even though demand is a lot higher for single family homes and supply is low for both, the supply for multifamily properties is super low. Often these multifamily properties are also in worse areas. You're not going to get the appreciation or more of the people that are going to take care of those buildings as much. And like I said previously, that multifamily comes with better scalability. So if your goal is to grow a huge portfolio, then yeah, I'd say jump into that multifamily space and let's find you a couple places that work out so that you can scale properly. If you just want to have a couple of properties that pay you money over time, that single family is a better return on your cash investment because of the appreciation. And the negative cash flow, although it's a concern, there is ways to overcome that by buying better properties that are going to actually cash flow for you. Then as rents go up over time, you actually are going to be in a better position with your higher appreciation rate, plus the added benefits of the tax write-offs and the principal paydown. So at the end of the day, it really depends on your budget, your risk tolerance, and your investment goals as an investor. And that's where I actually think I can help you. If you are looking for an investment here in Winnipeg, I want to go over what your long-term plan is so that we can come up with a plan or a guide on how to get you to your end goal. If you have a number in mind that you want to have for cash flow, we can get that. If you have a net worth that you want to have in mind for 20 years down the road, we could figure out how you would get there. A lot of people seem to look at real estate like individual deals because that's what you're told to when you're underwriting, is you look at little bite-sized chunks that you can actually go through the work. But you do have to look at your whole investment portfolio. And I think it is very helpful to do that up front so you can understand which investment vehicle is going to be best for you. And spoiler, often it's going to be a combination of all three. So if you found this video informative and helpful, let me know in the comments. And if you're looking to get into the Winnipeg market for investing in real estate, reach out to me and let's connect on how to find you that next investment property.